asked who enjoys breathing. So I was in Kerry, 2014, and I used to cycle to work. This is on my commute from Cololo down into town. I'm sure some of the haziness is natural, but some of it isn't. Right? Okay, so that's what people have to breathe every day. So I don't know how bad it was, really. I guess that's the purpose of the project, so I was a bit worried. So, yeah, why does it matter? So there's a number earlier from Damon, that's 5.5, I think it's all air pollution. If you're only interested in outdoor air pollution, then I think it's 2.6 million people, like, directly killed because of it. Heart disease and stroke are the main ways it gets you. The upside is this, it's probably a big deal. Okay. So the most important one? The most important one is particulate matter called PM2.5. So these are particles of stuff floating about in the air. They're about 2.5 microns across. Sorry. And they're perfectly sized to get right in your lungs, and then they get stuck there, right? So you're kind of like, it's not good for you. So to put this in perspective, like we plot, this is PM 2.5, and it's measured in micrograms per cubic meter. Okay, and the UN, WHO, sets its like, I'll put some scale here. So it's 150 micrograms, 150, and the WHO says 10 is kind of like probably as much as you should get. Okay, any more than that, and it's probably going to do some damage. So if you go to London and you go to somewhere quiet, away from the traffic, the background's 8 on average. Okay, so this is a bit sketchy because like it's the peaks that matter, but 8's like here, I guess. So that's London. Who's next? Okay, so the European Union is a bit more slack. It says 12.5 is okay. The UK says 25's. Oh, sorry, that's the US, and the EU says 25 is okay. Whatever. So where are we? London, near a road is like 15, so it's around here somewhere. And then we've got, okay, let's keep going. So Kampala isn't measured much, but the US Embassy in Kampala started measuring, and I checked yesterday, and they said that yesterday's average was about 60. So that's here, so not great, but, you know. Then the worst day that's been recorded in London was 75. This is like London worst day. There we go. Where else is there? Then ginger, it's only been measured once, and ginger got 99. So that's here. Ginger. So I thought ginger was quite nice, but maybe it's okay as long as you take your own air. I don't know. And then Nairobi, it's 129. It's average for 2010, I think. That's Nairobi. So there's a bit of a competition here potentially. Who's going to win? Is it Nairobi? Is it Kenya or Uganda? So unfortunately for Nairobi, Kampala's in the lead. It's only been measured once, but it was 139 was the average. I might have got the scale on. It's like there. Cool. So that was just a one-day measurement, so we don't really know what the average is. Okay. Weirdly, like Beijing's actually averages 100. But that's according to their government, so I don't know. Anyway, New Delhi does worse. It's where was it? 153 was the annual average. So the scale's gone wrong, but you get more. The worst measurement on record was for New Delhi, and that was for like a few days, and it averaged over 999. I think that's as high as their like. I think it's a bit suspicious. It was 999. It kind of made me feel like their sensor just doesn't go into 4 digits or something. Anyway, what's the upshot of all this? Okay, yeah, but the thing is, urban areas, especially in developing countries, are like, it's kind of bad, right? If we think 10 is probably as much as we should be breathing, it's probably really bad for us, right? It's like smoking all the time or something. Anyway, so how bad is what's it in Kampala and where is it worst? Is the question. Okay. So, yeah, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, so this is a map of where there's regular monitoring of air pollution. It's a bit low res, but you can sort of see there's blobs all over the place. But, like, the whole of Africa, well, at least most of Africa's missing regular monitoring. And even the one in Tanzania, the dot there, is actually just a single sample taken in a field somewhere. So it's not really, that one turned out to not be a real sensor after all. So there's a lack of monitoring. but I guess it's improved slightly with the US Embassy starting to monitor and things. So this was when I was back in 2014, I was cycling and I was a bit worried, so I cobbled together this little gadget. The phone, I could use the microphone input on the phone as an analog input from this cruddy little bit, this one here. That bit there is a Shinye particulate counting machine, and it only costs like $12, so it's cheap, but it's not that good. But it does measure something. So this is my little experiment in my house, and I lit a match, and then put it out again, and then each time I lit a match, you could see there's a spike. So at least it measured something, but I think they need work. So the POSH sensors that the US Embassy will be using, they'll be tens of thousands of pounds, so it's kind of inaccessible. So it's a bit tricky. There's another one called Alpha Sense that does a bit better. And that box, by the way, is Rose's, so thanks for lending it to the project, because I basically stole her hardware and used it. Anyway, since then, an engineer from Kampala, from the Kerry, has managed to get some funding, and he's basically got it, extended the project far beyond what I was imagining. So he's built boxes. I'm holding one of them there. There's another one on the Boda Boda, just here on the bike. And so they've put sensors on lampposts and on motorbike taxis scattered around town. The idea is we'll be able to monitor the pollution across Kampala. There's loads of iterations. Even knowing how to put it on the bike, you think, oh, it's bolt on the bike, simple. But the guy was a bit concerned because it looks really, you can see the one I'm holding is bright green or something. Is it green, orange, whatever? And he's like, it gets quite a lot of attention from the security, it's a bit of a hassle. So he painted it black and covered it with a bit of cruddy bin bag to hide it from security, and that seemed to work really well. But there's lots of things like that. It's tricky, and we can't power it with a solar panel because it doesn't a solar panel attracts attention, and the alternator barely ever turns his engine on. So the alternator turned out to be a rather insufficient source of power. So we're still working on how to power it on the bikes. Currently, it's just being charged by the driver, which might be adequate. We put some on posts. There's one there at the Kampala's biggest rubbish dump. That was an interesting trip. You can see it up on the post. We haven't had any trouble with people pinching them yet. The problem is we can't get up there ourselves, because we have to get the KCCA to help us. So a bit awkward. There's another one. Can you spot the air pollution sensor? Stuff on the top of the post above the advert. And you can spot some air pollution being made in that photograph as well. That's a close-up of the one on the bottom. So this is live, so it's updated a few minutes ago. It's from one sensor at the university. It's kind of intriguing. So each of these is midnight, each day, as it were. And it seems weird that the pollution is worse at night. So I'll have to talk to people who know about pollution to know why that happens. There's two theories. One, it's to do with weather or something. And the other one, it might be to do with people burning rubbish outside the office. So it's like two hypotheses. We'll see. Anyway, so these graphs are kind of okay, but they only tell you about one place. It varies a lot across the city. So our plan is to collect the data from all these different sensors and combine them using, obviously, a Gaussian process, the best methods. And we've got the latitude, longitude, time, and then obviously the distance from where the biggest roads are. These are all obvious things to measure, to use as inputs. So this is the current guess. So there's only a couple of sensors in progress here. There's a Boda Boda that's driving around, and there's one at Macquarie University. And hopefully over the next 2 months we'll put out 10 more, so we should be able to get better map. So the good thing about Gaussian processes, unlike, say, neural networks or something, is that they can represent uncertainty quite well. So what I'm doing here is the size of there's little squares everywhere, and sort of the bigger they are, the more sure it is about the data. So here we've got a center, so it's properly confident, and the Boda Boda often goes around here. Shouldn't really tell you, but its stage is over here somewhere, so it's being measured here a lot. But then as soon as you move away from where the sensors are, then obviously it becomes less confident about so it sort of makes sense? Yeah. And then hopefully over time you'll be able to see that changing. And we could ask for individual predictions at individual locations,
It will tell you what pollution is or what it could be, prediction, and also tell you how confident it is about that prediction too. So, fairly standard GP stuff. Right. Oh yeah, there's different types of sensor, the cheap one, the Shinye, and the good one, the Alpha. And GPs let you correlate these things in a way that handles that sort of difference. So loads of things to do. We need to calibrate it with decent sensors. So the one at the USMC would be really useful if we could get our sensor put next to theirs, because then we can calibrate ours. It'd be good if we could distribute the plans with other cities. I know loads of other organisations have made similar things, but you know, maybe ours is better than theirs, so we can distribute it. There's those things. Maybe we could ask the border to go to places that we know least about to like estimate our. Oh, thanks. We could send the border to places where there's we don't know about things. It would be good to maybe look at where the pollution's from, so we could do a little survey to see, you know, what time people burn rubbish, what time the emergency generators kick in, when the traffic's worst, and then we might be able to start assigning causality to the pollution. The other thing is, I pointed out where the border's stage was, a bit awkward, because obviously the raw data tells you exactly where the border's going, so we may need to think a little bit about providing privacy. Luckily, I've just written a paper on how to apply differential privacy to GP, so hopefully that will come in handy. Also, like we've got hospital admission data that we could maybe correlate with the pollution. That's kind of a depressing thought that there might actually be like acute responses, but there probably would be. Finally, what's the point in all this? We've measured all this stuff, but hopefully it'll be actually useful for the wider world. Like awareness raising, maybe in the long run it means people like, you know, voting people who will do something about it. You know, maybe the newspapers will pick it up. Yeah, if we know causation, then we could eventually target things in a sort of socially responsible way. Maybe providing less smoky fuel, you know, that sort of thing. So if anyone does any mitigation, it would be a really good idea to get a baseline first. And finally, KCCA are planning, they've been planning since like 2012, but to have a non-motorised area in Old Kampala, and they've got this artistic concept, so if anyone living in Kampala can imagine this, I don't know. Anyway, that's now, and that's what it would be like, apparently. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. Thanks to Engineer and Joel for actually doing the actual project, and Pius and the AI Lab for letting us use your 3D printer. It's really handy. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Mike. Questions? Yeah, thank you. This is really interesting, especially whatever is going on the other chart. Especially what's going on that chart.
Oh, this chart?
Yeah. So I'm wondering, given the discussions yesterday about the politics, and given that none of us has capacity to do anything about that, if probably this means probably Neil should bring in the PR team, and the organizers should also see about what to do about the politics, because ultimately, if we only keep doing research and nothing gets done about it, it's kind of frustrating. It would be good to see what we are doing translate into the policy and all that.
Sure, I think that's maybe just something that researchers just have to take. You know, it's just tough, right? I mean, climate change researchers for decades have been like saying, oh, it's really bad. But the thing is, it's up to politicians. It's up to them who have voted like hopefully elected to like weigh up the cost and benefits, right? So maybe the economic benefit of like productivity trumps the health of your population. Like maybe it's not up to us to actually like be sure about that, right? We just tell them the facts, and then they have to make a decision based on them. So I think it makes sense to keep, you know, I guess in my personal opinions, coming through a little bit in the presentation, I should have like been a lot more agnostic about whether we should reduce pollution. But you know what I mean? We should keep research, and I think they should be kept
question.
Do you have any plans to scale this project to up-country towns? And then secondly, will you consider sharing your data with other researchers who are interested in it?
Yeah, good questions. So one thing is we want a project that was so cheap that it would be really easy to scale, and that's why we started. For most projects, we've been using the $10 or $15 Junior devices, because then like one unit would be £40 or something, and it would be like easy to scale at little cost. But with experimenting, we've sort of decided that maybe the alpha sense, even though they're like £300 or £400, and like maybe $300 or $400, they're still, you know, they're sort of necessary. You can't go as cheap as a studio probably. Like, at least it depends, right? But the other way is hard to scale without external funding, and then that's then you've got to go through the process of finding more funding and things. And we're trying to work out ways of making it pay for itself, maybe like a web page where you can look up the pollution in your area and you get advertising and stuff on it, but it's a bit tricky. Second question, sorry, what's your
Would you consider sharing your data with other researchers?
Yes, okay, so I've already mentioned the actual plot of the pollution comes from an API, and the plan is to allow pollution queries to be made to that with historical predictions, but we've kept the data private because it includes the GPS coordinates of the water body, which will reveal where he lives, where his state is, where his passengers go. It's quite private data, so we're going to have to put some effort into making that private before we release it. But that's purely from my point of view. We're happy to release it once we've dealt with the privacy implications. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike. Another round of applause for Mike. Thank you, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen.